Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the show. I am Jimmy Moreland, voice actor, audiobook narrator, and music producer. I wanted to walk through a recent audiobook project I did that had a lot of fun, unique aspects to it that I thought might inspire some creativity in my fellow narrators out there. 3 things in particular. It was a barter deal, the prologue was read by the author, and there's a bit of singing. So for background, I moved to Mid-Coast, Maine from Texas a little over 2 years ago, and there's a sort of a living local legend around here. He was a ship captain for about 50 years, and now in his retirement, he works as hard as ever running a maritime museum. Well, I met Captain Jim Sharp because he hosts a music jam every Sunday at his museum, and I come to find out he published a memoir about 10 years ago. I also have my eye on this old banjo he's got on a stand in the museum. I get friendly enough with Jim that he lets me play that banjo every Sunday at the jam. I get to know Jim a little better as the months go by, and eventually I semi-jokingly float the idea of narrating his memoir in exchange for that old banjo. He loves the idea, but he's over 90 years old, and it takes some explaining about how the production and publishing process works and how he'd get paid through Amazon and all that. We work through the details, and we're ready to go. He gives me a paperback copy of his memoir, and I can't remember the last time I'd read a physical book, let alone used it in the booth, so I knew I'd eventually need to buy it on Kindle to narrate from, since I didn't want the extra worry of the paper noise. Now I notice, pre-reading it, that the prologue is really heavy on nautical terms, and it's really short, and I get the idea in my head of having Captain Jim read it. He's very much a character, and he is no stranger to giving speeches and so on, so I figure it'll be a great fit. And I also really liked the historical preservation and presentation aspect of hearing this man's voice right as you're about to hear his life story. Captain Jim came to my studio, and we knocked out the recording super quick. He was a real pro. I didn't really have to direct him much, and the only retakes were really because of paper noise. For narrators curious about exactly how I introduce and transition into and out of the prologue, I do it entirely in the opening credits, and here is how that sounds. Narrated by Jimmy Moreland, with prologue read for you by the author.
Prologue. 'Tis always the same image, that old dream repeating.
And then at the end of the prologue, I come in and narrate from chapter 1 on, and here's how that transition sounds.
Captain Jim Sharp, Camden, Maine, December 2006.
Chapter 1. Tough Times and Wet Feet. I'm really happy to have had this experience, and I think it's a special thing to have in a memoir. The next fun thing about this project is another musical bit. There's a passage in the book where Captain Jim talks about the songs that rival captains would sing at each other as they passed each other in the harbor, and he includes a few lines from one of those songs. Well, I asked Jim what the tune was, and I recorded him singing it for me. I recognized the tune, because I'm into old tunes like that, and I did some research to confirm that it was public domain, so I knew this is going to happen. Now, I have produced a lot of my own music, and I know how I like to produce my voice, and let's just say that audible specs are not the ideal delivery format of the voice in song. I wouldn't have all the lovely compression, saturation, delay, and reverb that my voice likes. And you know what? That was okay. I knew these 2 lines of singing needed to feel as authentic as I hope the rest of the book feels. So, here's the excerpt with a little bit of preceding and following dialogue to get you in and out of it. The poor mercantile went through the water, dragging her stern like an old dog with rheumatism. They used to sing, "There's so much hog to the mercantile, to me way hi-yo. They're serving pork at every mill a long time ago." Her crew, including yours truly. Well, I got the project delivered, and so I received my payment. This beautiful Vega banjo. Now, I didn't know what year this thing was when we made the agreement, because the serial number for this thing is stamped on the inside. So it wasn't until I got it home and completely stripped it down to do a deep clean and tune-up that I was able to determine its age. And this bad boy was produced in 1928. It feels great, and I think it sounds great. So I'm hoping that narrators take from this a few things. It's likely that there are authors in your community that have books worth narrating. I've found projects from in-person contact when I lived in downtown Houston, Texas, and I found them here in sleepy Mid-Coast Maine, so you can do it too wherever you are. Be creative with your deals. There's royalty share, there's per finished hour, and there's other things. What can you barter for? It's likely that you'll find more barter opportunities doing commercial voiceover, but be on the lookout. Be creative with your production. Yeah, having an author read the prologue or just doing some singing isn't anything new, but these were new to me, and I wasn't afraid to make it happen. Go out on a limb. Try a duet narration, or give in to the author who really, really wants music at the start of every chapter. Whatever. As narrators, we get to tell amazing stories, true ones and fiction. And whatever the genre, whatever else you have going on in your business, this is a wonderful, creative thing we get to do. And while we can always find ways to push our creativity on the performance side, we can also find ways to be creative on the business side. So tell me, how have you been creative in your business? What wacky deals or productions have you been a part of? Let me know in a comment below, and while you're at it, like and subscribe. Thanks for coming by the show. I am Jimmy Moreland, and I'll see you around.